The story begins with our main character playing his virtual game. He and his teammates have just finished an event, so the others are now logging off. Our main character is about to do the same, but before leaving, he decides to open the treasure chest he just received. A blinding light shines after opening it, revealing that his mastery reward is a golden ticket. This ticket allows him to cross into the Azure world, which he initially thought was a crappy reward and a scam. However, curiosity lingers in his mind, so he still decides to use it. To his surprise, he is instantly sucked into a black hole. After waking up, he finds himself in an open field next to the 10-mile slope near the beginner's village. Confused, he realizes he turned off his VR, and he doesn't have a VR device with him. He had prepared for transmigration, but he wasn't ready to become a monster. To his dismay, he discovers that even a slime could defeat him, and his attempts at leveling up prove challenging. The only benefit he gains is a quick resurrection after death. Despite being the weakest monster in the area, he doesn't give up and seeks alternative ways to level up. He observes two adventurers, a knight and a mage, fighting skeletons. The knight successfully defeats the skeletons, but one behaves strangely. The main character intervenes, provoking the knight and leading to a chaotic situation. Using his knowledge from playing Azure for 10 years, he manipulates the monster's hatred to prioritize attacking players in a specific radius. As the main character levels up, news spreads on the World Channel forum about a level 5 skeleton harassing newbies. A level 25 knight offers to help, catching the main character's attention. Enjoying the sun with his guards and a slave slime he tamed, the main character's day takes a turn when the level 25 knight suddenly attacks him. He is killed on the spot, realizing his arrogance and vowing revenge. Living in the game for 8 days, he discovers that 2 days have passed in reality. He realizes the need to find a way back, assuming his parents must be worried. However, his assumptions are wrong, as his parents are enjoying their vacation without concern for him. Meanwhile, the main character decides to level up quickly to change jobs at level 20 and obtain a human body for revenge. Soon after, he takes on a bunch of tasks and kills a bunch of monsters. Repeating this without a break, he reaches level 20 in a single day. Now, he just has to change jobs in the main city. Therefore, he goes there, but expectedly he is blocked by the guards at the gate. Without question, he is slain on the spot. He resurrects immediately, but his death drops half of the experience gained, bringing him back to level 10. Now he realizes how idiotic he is, as he just remembered he is a monster. A few moments later at the Devil Wolf Valley, the adventurers are having a tough time dealing with the challenges. They can't back out since they need to collect wolf fur to change classes. While discussing their strategy, the archer notices a group of skeletons ganging up on a single wolf. The skeletons brutally attack it with teamwork, surprising the archer. The wolf, enraged, sharpens its defense and attack, about to bring down its opponents with it. The archer tries to alert his teammates, but they are still busy discussing. The wolf fails to kill its opponents and is penetrated from behind, making the archer frantic. His teammates finally notice monsters farming other monsters, realizing the monsters are better hunters. Meanwhile, a new player logs into the game. A pixie welcomes him to the VR world called Azure, where he can synchronize all 5 senses, including touch. There are no fixed tasks, and players engage personally in NPC interactions, triggering missions from super-intelligent AIs. The player can enter an academy to improve skills and become part of the Azure world. There are 5 basic abilities: controlling elements, taming monsters, martial arts, engineering, and mind, each with sub-abilities. In the virtual world, the player can find the ability that suits him best. After the basics are introduced, the pixie guides the new player to get used to his basic movements. The pixie instructs him to go to the novice training camp, the 10-mile slope, and kill 10 low-level monsters. Excited and filled with expectations, the new player's enthusiasm diminishes as he goes through the portal and sees high-level skeletons waiting to attack him. Confused, he drops his sword, leaving him defenseless as the skeletons easily overwhelm him. A few moments later, the skeletons happily carry their loot. The main character gives small skeleton booklets and instructs him to distribute them to the others. All skeletons must have the same equipment, except those with a different body shape. They must look the same. When encountering high-level players, they must follow instructions in the booklet. They should choose different directions to run when escaping, and if the player is above level 5 or below 30, lure them to the rendezvous point for a 10-on-1. If the player is above level 30 or has changed class, record their player ID, run towards the goblin camps, and anger the goblins. Let the goblins attack the high-level player, gaining experience points. Unexpectedly, the skeletons have an issue with the master plan, shocking the main character. Before he can ask why, the little guy clarifies that they don't know how to read, shocking him even more. So, he improvises and instructs them morally, which they understand surprisingly fast. After telling them that he will leave them for a while, he puts the little guy in charge of the crew. The little guy asks why he has to leave, to which he explains that the sky they can see is only a little, but in the outside world, the sky is massive. The Azure world is so vast that there is still a shortage of players, and various cultures intertwine. He tells the little guy that when he reaches a high enough level, there will be a time for him to go out and see the great mountains and rivers. This statement makes the little guy's eyes shimmer with hope for the future, while the main character smirks, realizing he is suddenly talking to a monster about this magical world. Despite being monsters, Azure has a magical quality that almost makes them feel like they can think deeply about it. After the heartwarming moment, he says his goodbyes and leaves the place. However, after a while, he comes back because he accidentally carried bags full of low-level armor stripped off novice players instead of the required materials for his transfer, wasting his efforts to look cool back then. In a change of scene, a mage is going after a bunny, attempting to put a beast-taming curse on it. Unbeknownst to her, our main character is hiding in the bushes, waiting for her to cast the curse. As she releases it towards the bunny, he knocks the bunny out, receiving the curse instead, making him a pet companion of the mage. The system congratulates her for acquiring a level 34 skeleton monster as her first pet. Instead of being happy, she collapses on the ground and starts crying. When asked why, she replies that it's because she wanted a cute pink rabbit, and he looks too ugly for her. He realizes he met a superficial idiot, but it's too late to back out. He improvises, summoning all the charisma he can muster to explain why he kicked the pink rabbit she wanted to tame out of the way. He tells her a story that he is an extraordinarily handsome prince who eloped with their princess, breaking free from oppression. However, the princess fell in love with his guard, not him, and wanted to elope with the guard. The guard remained loyal, and the princess cursed a letter, turning the prince into a defamed skeleton. He is committed to lifting the curse and avenging his guard. The mage believes his story and is excited to help him find his guard. Now fully convinced, she introduces herself as Bubble. They stand in front of the gates of the main city, and the main character confidently walks to enter. However, the guard stops them to inform the mage that her pet skeleton needs to be leashed to enter the city. The main character is shocked, as he completely forgot about this. A few moments later, he finally enters the city with a leash on him, and his master, being a newbie, is delighted to see all the amazing things inside the main city. He explained that all players at level 20 would transfer to the city. The Azure world's detail is almost the same as that of the real world, with the city located at the center of the east-west junction, making it the commercial and trading hub, the most prosperous city in Azure. The mage notices a tea shop inside the city, delighting her. The main character advises her to try one since Azure simulates taste through brain waves connected to VR. She doesn't have money, so he gives her a bag of coins stolen from players to further convince her that he is a prince. She buys a milk tea and enjoys it more than the real one. Their peaceful walk is disturbed by an adventurer shouting at an NPC. The main character decides to mind his own business, but Bubble is not beside him, now protecting the NPC despite her low level. The adventurer berates and mocks her, making her flustered. The douchebag decides to leave, but the main character beats him and mocks him, revealing his level and shocking the douche's teammates. The girl NPC thanks him and takes matters into her own hands, beating the player up and handcuffing him. In a change of scene, they are now inside a cafe discussing the events. Bubble asks why the girl NPC wasn't punished, and she explains she knew the guard and won't be arrested. She introduces herself as Yuka and gives her fruit store address. They part ways, and Skeleton and Bubble discuss encountering a hidden task. Skeleton warns her not to underestimate any NPC in Azure due to various hidden tasks. They arrive at the transfer hall without hesitation, realizing they encountered a hidden task with Yuka's address. Inside, they line up to receive a number, and Skeleton explains that during the 10th anniversary main mission for Azure, it's expected to be the biggest ever. During the 9th year anniversary, there was already a civil war between Eastern and Western countries. He notes that despite 10 years, new players are still joining. His number is called, and he goes over to the counter, successfully changing class without problems. Meanwhile, Bubble is approached by a squirrel-looking dude who claims she might have been tricked. As a know-it-all, he insists his knowledge is always right and questions the existence of monster secret missions. He sends a friend request and leaves the scene with a smug on his face. With this strange interaction, the mage is now doubting Skeleton's identity. However, before she could think harder about it, Skeleton has already finished his class-changing ceremony and is now in front of her with a new handsome face, looking like a snack. Bubbles unexpectedly starts to cry, and when asked why, she explains what had happened. Skeleton comforts her and treats her to some good food, making her feel much better. Meanwhile, the squirrel is inside the bar, enjoying his drink and shocked that Bubbles declined his friend request. He planned to scare her and see what's up with the monster she's with, but she didn't take the bait. However, since a monster entered the city, there should be many people aware of this, so he isn't bothered too much and is excited about what the future holds. At the same time, Bubbles is enjoying the food that Skeleton treated her with, chewing on everything she puts her hands on. Skeleton tells her that he is going to help her upgrade and level up her job to prepare for the Devi Academy election. Only players at level 40 can participate in the entrance exam for the 3 major colleges of Azure each year, and former participants also have the opportunity to participate. The schools require more skill and efficiency than normal self-training, with multiple legendary players and NPCs teaching. He shares this information because something happened to him after a successful moment in his job change. He received a mail, surprising him that a monster could still have mail. The contents of the mail surprised him even more, telling him that someone from the other side of the mail never would have thought a little monster changed his occupation so quickly. The mail asks if he wants to know why he transmigrated and if he wants to know how to return to the real world. It instructs him to complete the main mission, and his answer will be there. It wishes him good luck and mentions it will be watching him. Remembering this, he states loudly that he will win and see who is really messing around. Bubbles unexpectedly responds happily, telling him that's the fighting spirit she also needs. She asks for more food, and he knows he will run out of money if she keeps eating like this. After eating in the restaurant, they are now walking outside, but Bubbles is still eating her food. Skeleton asks her to eat less, explaining that even if eating here won't make her fat, food is very expensive, and even a rich owner can't keep up with her eating. She responds that she knows but ignores it, changing the subject by asking what they are going to do next. Skeleton states that later they will go to the DD Academy election exam, and with someone like him as a pet, with her current level of 10, she can practically get into the second exam with no problems. Next, they are going to focus on leveling her up so she can be ready for the second exam, which is 10 days away, and she is ecstatic to do it. At a later time, at the 10-mile slope, Skeletons, goblins, and slimes are constructing their new base, surprising the main character with their fast progress in just 3 days. While he is mesmerized by the new fortress, the skeletons notice him and charge at him. He dodges their attacks and realizes they don't recognize him, so he teaches them a lesson. On the ground, the monsters realize they can't win, but they remember what their master taught them and decide to use their ultimate ability, retreating. Now, everyone is out of sight, nowhere to be seen, surprising Bubbles as she asks him if these are the monsters he considers tamed. He responds that if they can't beat the opponent and execute the command to escape, they are considered pretty tame. He then calls out to the fatty skeleton, instigating that he is their master, and commands them to stop hiding. The chunky skeleton, hurt and excited, comes out from the ground and immediately asks his master why he chose to transform. Therefore, they sat down and explained to him what had happened. Now, Chunky knows that Bubble is their boss's owner. He then asks Chunky how they progressed so fast, to which he explains that they realized goblins' HP and strength are stronger than theirs. So, they gathered some goblins, and by working together, they could already defeat players around level 30. However, they found out that the chances of escaping weren't too high. Therefore, they built a fortress above ground, acting as a disguise that serves as a bunker. After having the bunker, they can quickly escape underground, making it difficult for players to find them. Even if players do find them, navigating the underground paths is challenging for them. Hearing this intricate plan, he is in disbelief and asks if they are really monsters. Chunky replies that they learned from the best, himself. He tells him to forget it, saying he even learned how to kiss ass. Chunky then suggests that they can join hunting players together, but Bubble rebukes him, as they don't engage in player killing. Now knowing that Chunky doesn't have any bright ideas, Skeleton suggests that Chunky, along with his subordinate monsters and Bubble, should kill other monsters to level up. During this time, Bubble needs to get familiar with the skills and new body after the occupation transfer. They also need to wait for the Academy's entrance exam notice. Skeleton emphasizes that exceeding the player's level might cause pets to show signs of loyalty collapsing, but they need not worry about it. With a large level gap, they should receive a good ranking. Having explained their plan, Skeleton encourages them to hurry and level up. Bubbles needs to reach level 39, and there are no restrictions for pets. He promises to increase his levels as well, given the lack of time to gather materials for a second transfer. Time passes quickly as they enjoy their time together, training, and capturing the knight who killed the main character. A messenger pigeon arrives with Bubbles' entrance exam notice. Opening the letter, Skeleton is surprised by the strength of players this year, ranking 9th. Instead of being discouraged, he is excited, anticipating that the exam would be fun. Meanwhile, in the real world, Miss Chung, the secretary, brings Chief Dong the data he requested. She inquires about Wei Dong's whereabouts, as she hasn't seen him for a few days. Chief Dong explains that Wei Dong was transferred to another department for scientific technological experiments. The parents of Wei Dong, traveling the world, are happy with their son's arrangements. Chief Dong teasingly asks Miss Chung if she's suddenly caring about Wei Dong, leaving her flustered and blushing. In another part of the story, a pink-haired girl named Schwer stands in front of a mansion, greeted by a beautiful lady she calls Auntie. Schwer goes upstairs to hang out with Bubbles, who has just logged off from the game. Without hesitation, Schwer pounces on Bubbles, and they share a moment. Schwer asks about Bubbles' experience playing Azure, and Bubbles joyfully recounts her adventures, including meeting Skeleton. Curious, Schwer asks for more details about the skeleton, fully believing the made-up backstory Bubbles provides. A few moments later, Schwer finished listening to Bubbles for a whole day. She wonders if Bubbles is dating the game characters, but Bubbles denies it to avoid being suspected as a weirdo. Schwer doesn't mind and tells her to wait while she finishes her work. She plans to go in the game to find Bubbles and see her little skeleton. Alone in her room, Schwer lies on her bed, thinking about the fun time in Azure. She sighs, wishing if only they were real, but decides not to dwell on it and goes to sleep. However, that wasn't what happened. A few moments later, at the 10-mile slope inside the skeleton camp, Bubbles is staring intensely at Skeleton. He asks why she came online at this time, and she explains that she couldn't sleep, so she came to check. She makes an excuse, saying she was scared he was lying to her to sneakily run away. Seeing that she is troubled, Skeleton sits down and reassures her, saying he is always there. Hearing those words makes her feel secure, and she sleeps easily. The next day, the year's examination ranking finally begins. Thousands of people gather in one place, with hustlers, businessmen, and scammers selling their stuff outside the entrance. Skeleton explains to Bubbles that the applicants for the entrance exam are cut from 30,000 to 2,000, and only 30 people are chosen in the end. Every exam affects the competition from all forces. Yuka greets them, stating she will take care of them, and they go inside the temple. Yuka notices that Skeleton has been looking at a trashy manual all this time. She advises him to watch where he's going instead of reading it. Skeleton explains that the manuals contain important information about the examiners. Yuka tells him that much of the information in those manuals isn't accurate, and it's too late to study them. She throws away the book and offers her own detailed manual, surprising Skeleton. He wonders how an NPC like her knows anything about the exam. A few moments later, they are seated, waiting for Chielao to show up so that the contest will begin. Chielao, the top-ranked 5 power holder in the Azure world, stumbles and plants his face on the ground, creating an awkward atmosphere. The guard helps him up, and he starts his speech, congratulating everyone who passed. He encourages everyone not to lose hope, mentioning the possibility of an outlier every year. The examination is separated into the first exam and the retest, testing aspects of wisdom, ability, and skill to evaluate the player's abilities. Everyone can take their number plate and enter the first location. Since Chielao decides not to ramble on too much, they can begin. The guard opens the portal, and with everyone having their number plate, the exam begins. The announcer starts the broadcast of Azure's Deity Academy, welcoming all viewers to the 10th entrance exam competition. After introductions, they explain the situation, with 2,000 participants but only 30 to be chosen. The first trial consists of 3 sections: body, wisdom, and weapon. There are 500 corresponding items on the island, and players must collect at least 3 items to meet one standard. Meeting 2 standards means passing. Players must have a level below 40, and lower-grade players can only pass through teamwork. However, the quantity of ghost makes once teamed up is not enough to be split up for everyone, so the question arises of how they would choose. Next up is the assessment of the instrument for players who need instrument expertise to assemble. Every 3 parts can be combined into a qualified part, and all these pieces come from a whole broken into 500 pieces. Selectively and carefully finding the perfect pieces that fit together isn't an easy task. The last part is the test of wisdom. Scattered on the island are scrolls that need 3 of them to be gathered to complete a formation. This formation not only satisfies the exam standards but also serves as transfer coordinates, becoming a crucial part of passing this exam. Now, the players have already arrived on the island. What interesting events will happen this time? The announcer puts all his energy into the exam to enjoy this fascinating game. Meanwhile, the ghost mink suddenly smells prey, and in an instant, it charges to attack, leaving a trail of blue flare. Unfortunately for it, its opponent is stronger than him, and it turns into a popsicle, just like other ghost minks who came across Skeleton. While Skeleton didn't think that this mission would have him restraining this monster like this, it seems like a good chance to experiment with his new skills. With a grin, he states that the game officially starts.